In this video, I'll share my own sim racing journey and give you some shortcuts and inspiration to improve whatever setup you have while saving you money. Let's look at my setup and see if it helps you. Today we'll be helping you decide your upgrade path by showing you base shakers, mountings, anti-vibration mounts, cable management and more. This is very specific to my own second-hand next level FGT cockpit, although all of this video will be applicable to your circumstance in some way, so keep watching. This video was made due to a specific request from one of our YouTube subscribers, so if there's a video you'd like us to make, leave us a comment. In fact, better yet, come race with us. We welcome all abilities and offer free support and advice. Like many sim racers, my journey began simply. After a controller, many start with a Logitech G29 or similar on a desk with a chair on wheels or something. I started with a new G923, but my TV was a 28-inch 720p shitbox balanced on a plank between two chairs with books for height adjustment. I scored myself a used rig that was missing a footplate and a gear shift mounting, so I measured the parts and found someone to laser cut them in 1mm steel. The whole rig cost me under $250 including parts, and I still use it today. Later I added a second-hand IKEA desk to slide the rig under, and then later I added base shakers and an amp before discovering SimHub, which we've already done a video on, so I'll link to that in the description. So let's talk about base shakers, or tactile transducers to give them their correct name. Basically this is force feedback for your butt. While your steering wheel gives you tactile feedback through the wheel itself by vibrating it, these do exactly the same thing but put the vibrations into your chair. Now there's a few options and a few ways we can set this up. So basically it's going to take the sound output from your console to the amp, and from the amp it's going to provide power to the speakers to vibrate and make those rumbles and things felt through your frame. So there's now SimHub, which works slightly differently. Rather than taking the sound output, it takes the telemetry output, which gives you greater control, because you can take, say, rumbles and put them to the seat, but you could take wheel slip and put it to your pedals if you wanted to. And we've already done videos on SimHub and how to configure it, so I'll link to that in the description. Good news is, either way you're going to do this, you're going to need an amp and some speakers, so let's get into that. Your base shakers that you're going to buy need to be a wider range of frequencies as possible. The Butt Kicker, for instance, uses 5 to 200 Hz. Now you're not likely to find speakers cheap that will be that wide a range, but just try and get ones that have got a wider range of frequencies as possible. Make sure you get an amp that can deliver enough power to the base shakers. So if you have two 25 watt speakers, then you need an amp that can deliver a total of 50 watts at 4 ohms. Get an amp with a variable power output or volume control, so you can control how much power is output to the tactile transducers, and don't blow your base shakers up by getting the biggest amp you can find and sending all the power to underrated base shakers. One thing to be aware of is the ohm rating of the speakers. If you have 4 ohm speakers, then you can match the amp wattage directly, but if the speakers are 8 ohms, then you need double the power. So again, back to our two 25 watt speakers, if they're running at 4 ohms, then you need a 50 watt amp to drive them, but if they're running at 8 ohms, then you'll need a 100 watt amp to drive them. Also, use appropriate size speaker cable from the amp to the base shakers. I use 16 gauge speaker wire for my 50 watt Dayton base shaker as an example. Now the next thing you're going to need to think about is the vibrations coming out of the base shakers are vibrating parts of your frame or your seat. Well, your frame is mounted on the floor, so the vibrations are going to be transferred directly into the floor. So what I did with my sim rig is I made some anti-vibration mounts. I mounted the seat of the sim rig on top of the anti-vibration mounts, causing a separation between the frame and the seat, and I mounted the entire rig on a rubber mat, and that has totally eliminated any floor vibrations. Now this didn't come without its challenges, because when I added the base shaker, it rubbed on the frame, so I added some timber struts to raise the frame up, and then of course then I'm adding anti-vibration mounts, and now the whole thing can get a bit tall and unsteady. So I had to carefully sort of plan out what I was going to do, but the end result was really good. And finally, a quick word on cable management. So there's two reasons for good cable management in my view. One is I don't like unsightly cables. In fact, I think sim rigs look much better when you can't see any cables at all. But secondly, and more importantly, I don't want to trap any of these cables, because some of the plugs are unique and hard to replace. and I don't want to tread on them or damage them in any way when I'm moving the rig around. So wrapping them in a black plastic conduit allows me to create an umbilical cord with all the cables in one place, and then cable tie that to the frame. And then if I do need to upgrade in the future, I can just unclip it and then run new cables. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you watch some of our other videos, and I certainly hope you'll come and like and subscribe, or even come and give us a race. Until next time, happy racing.